welcome to our weekly live stream for adult guitar players. And this is our finale stream in this series. And I want to thank my volunteers that have come out and for 2 months, every Monday, they've joined me. And it's been a really, really wonderful time. And things are kind of starting to open up again. And we're starting to offer some live lessons. And the option for video is going to be here to stay forever. It was actually here for 5 years before COVID ever happened. But I'm glad to see that, we're starting to make some headway in the province and around the world, and very thankful to my guests. And so we're looking at ways to become rock stars around the campfire, and that's what we're going to do. Let's rock out. Okay, so I'm going to unmute Doug and Justin, and almost got Justin unmuted. I think he needs to do it himself. There we go. I'm going to put us in gallery view so everybody can see everybody. And Doug, you got your new digs back there, and looks like it looks good. And is your audio working on that?
Yeah, my end's fine.
Oh, yeah, look at you go. That like a champ, He upgraded.
Great. Actually, my wife did. I'm just borrowing her space.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So in our finale episode, I thought, because I didn't prep you guys at all, and you're very used to me now where I just throw you under the bus, that I wanted to start off with, from your experience of this, both of you, came in knowing how to do some solo stuff. Justin and I connected on a super nerdy level, and him and I have been able to deep dive down that rabbit hole. And but I thought I'd throw it over to you guys and say, from your experience with this, what would you recommend? What would you say are the biggest learning experiences for other people that are wanting to start soloing? This is also selfish for me to ask this question, because then I get to know what to tell students in the future. So who wants to go first on that question? Really, the question is, let me be concise about it, is somebody that's just getting into soloing, they know a little bit, maybe they know their pentatonic scale, and they maybe have learned a part or a full solo from somebody else. What would you say are the biggest things they can do and your takeaways that would help them?
Okay, well, I'm willing to go first.
Perfect.
I would tell them that they should focus on theory. It's great that they know the pentatonic scale, and they should focus on listening to other artists and seeing how they can not necessarily mimic what they're doing, but sort of change it in a way that reflects how they play. And if they keep practicing, they can develop their own sound eventually, and they can learn after a while, what they like to do in a solo, and eventually they can just, jam out. And that's the best part of when you finally get to learn all of this and it all just sort of clicks. That moment is awesome.
That's awesome. So I'm going to dive a little deeper in with you on that, because I've put the teacher hat on you for a moment. What? So you said focus on theory. What parts of theory would you recommend people focus on from your experience?
Well, from what I've learned doing the online lessons, key signatures help a bunch. Understanding what notes work in what song, you really get to understand like what you can use, what tools are at your disposal when you're making a solo. And learning different scales as well, not just the pentatonic scale necessarily. That's great for when you're first learning, but adding like different blues scales, the major and minor scale, just making your own melodies and stuff like that. And after practicing all of that stuff and developing your ears, it just will flow naturally, or at least hopefully it'll flow naturally.
Well, and not everybody is as naturally gifted as you, Justin. But that is awesome. So Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you. From your perspective, what would you recommend to other, friends and people that are looking to do the same thing?
I think from a perspective of Campfire Junkie, where maybe you can't put as much time and effort and focus into it, it started with me when I was able to have a better understanding of what key I'm in. So prior to doing these little sessions, I would be sitting around the campfire, we're playing A and D, and we're playing an old song, and I would hunch around, and then I would try to do some kind of little finger lick, but oh, I'm in the wrong spot on that string. So I really I'd get a couple things like that because I'd have to hunt for where to be. Now I have a much better understanding of, okay, when the song starts, what key I'm in. And, I've only been primarily working on A. I could probably shift it if it was G. But I started to realize how important it is to know where you are on the guitar. And then after that, now I'm starting to play with speed and, what kind of sound it is. But before I was really lost on even where to be on the guitar.
Nice. Good answers from both of you guys. So both of you identified, understanding the key that you're in and how important that is. Which we spent a fair bit of time on, which is super cool. So, and then Justin, Doug had a blackout on internet last week. And so it was you and I thought we were going to go down the super nerdy, hole of, theory. And we ended up actually going into the more, what I call music psychology. It's like sports psychology. So, what were your takeaways this week, Justin? I don't know if you, thought about it at all, and I just keep throwing you under the bus here and driving over you again and again and again. What was your kind of big takeaways from last week?
So from last week specifically, talking about the difference between like improvisation and if you wanted to build your own solo, like I said before, it comes a lot down to what you think sounds good. And the more you play, the more your ears develop and the more creative you can become. And then you discover different rhythms, and then you take these rhythms, move it, use different notes, and just really experimenting. And the way I do it is lots of trial and error. Lots of, okay, I like that. I don't really like that. And just messing around with it and having fun. And then memorizing this and being able to even construct your own song around it if you really wanted to. Mm-hmm. And just being able to hook your audience in with your solo and how to make it awesome, take it to that next level.
Yeah, so that kind of really rings true with the perspective of when you're doing these types of solos, you're not only, thinking about the theory, what key am I in, what works, but you're thinking about when you're playing, what actually sounds good, right? Like evaluating, is this actually good? It doesn't matter if the notes work, that's safe, right? But does it fit? Are we now actually playing the song? So then, okay, from that perspective, in case either of you couldn't tell, I don't have a plan. So we can go multiple ways. One of the things that Justin brought up, which I think is super cool, which we can do or not, but a topic that inevitably comes up is how to find your own sound. That's, Justin had talked a little bit about that, developing his own sound, and then I triggered, oh yeah, at some point both of these guys are going to face that. But Doug, around the campfire, are you worried, is that something that's even in your forefront where you want to have your own personality and sound as a guitar player?
I think it will come just because I'm a relatively creative person. So I think that's going to come. I think I'm a little bit, that's a ways down the road. And some of that own sound, last week in our lesson, I worked a little bit on finger structure and picking structure. So I would say a strong 30 to 40% of the time when I come off a chord that I missed the string. Like I'm not on the right string and I got to fumble around. So yes, I think I'll evolve to that where I'm going to look for that, what kind of becomes my signature, but there's a lot of mechanical work to do yet.
Right, you're still trying to hold the pick correctly, and all those things. Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to go down a little bit this pathway a little bit because it's never too early to start thinking about that, and there's some very helpful things to be even people beginning soloing. So how is that for a segue, Doug? From you saying it's not important yet to be saying, okay, we're going there anyway. So. And here's why. So when I have this conversation with more pro players, I basically say, everybody has a sound. When, I can often, there's sometimes where I can, if I hear somebody that's highly educated, if I hear them play, I can tell you what school they went to because they will play a certain way. But then when people get into their own styles and pushing things, if I've jammed with somebody or played with somebody and we haven't seen each other in 5 years, I've had this where I'm walking down the street and then I hear somebody in a club playing and I'm like, oh, that's such and such on guitar, because I remember them, or this is such and such on bass, because there is a signature there. And everybody has their own sound automatically built in. People say they need to find their sound. And I always say, no, you don't. It's already there. You just got to get rid of everything else that is not your sound. There's a whole bunch of things that'll be interfering with it. Things like not holding your pick correctly, all of those kinds of things. And so here's the way that we start to make your sound happen for you. Is we have to look at what are the things for you individually that have come a little easier, that have been, and it's a little bit tough. It's easier for me to see because I get to see a whole bunch of clients and I have a good cross section of knowledge of this is how, on average, how difficult something is. But you will know from when you've tried to play something, what just seemed to come easier and what was a lot harder. So it could be barred chords were super tough, but open chords were easy. I'm just using that as an example. Right. So for me, early on, when I started to look at this in my own playing, I started out on bass guitar before I ever even picked up a guitar. So I had a lot of strength in my hands compared to guitar players. So I said, okay, cool, there's a strength. And I want to step on that. And then it became part of my sound. So essentially what I always say is, people typically when they're a student, they're kind of looking at, here's my weaknesses, here's my strengths. And they're working on, getting their weaknesses, and their strengths just naturally come along. But then at a certain point, you have to say, what are your strengths? And as you step on them, that's when your sound emerges. Right? So from that perspective, would you say, Justin, that there's anything easily identifiable that you could say, here's ass strength? And it can be very, very simple from, me saying about myself, I have a little bit more strength in my hands than most guitar players, anything like that. Is there anything that you can think of that you would be a strength?
I would say that I was pretty creative musically and still am. Like, I never had issues with learning new songs. Even when I very first started playing, I would learn like Smoke on the Water, everybody's first song, and you would play it. And then it would like, oh, so what if I took the starting note and changed it to this? And
right.
Without even knowing what I was doing, I had just changed the key of the song. And I've always liked messing around with that stuff. I've found that stuff has always come easier to me than I would say to other people. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of not afraid to ask the question and make up your own answer.
Yeah. Sure.
Which is awesome. I love that. Okay. Doug, would you say that there's something for you? Because you were like, when I first saw you play guitar, I didn't get to see the initial stages. You came to me as a guy that had, years and years around the campfire going. Would you say that there's things that have come easier for you?
Yeah, I think just speed and ability to change chords quickly. I have a larger than normal hand. I can reach on the neck fairly easy. And then that's why I think I'm trying to break into that sound where I'm playing and coming back to playing chords, like kind of a mixed play, because I think for a person that has as much experience as I do, which is fairly limited, I can move around the neck quite well of the guitar. So I think my own sound's going to start to come out with a hybrid of playing chords because I like to sing, but then in the transition or in the dead space of the song, I'll be doing some little 1-bar riff and then back into the chords again. Nice.
I like that. Okay. So, Justin, yours is, basically that you're not afraid to say, let's see what happens when I do X, Y, Z. Right. And you say trial and error, which usually starts with more error and then less trial.
Oh, yeah.
right? And Doug, for you, it's been I would like you say, I'm kind of rewording this, but some hand strength, but then also being able to change from complicated things, not single note stuff, but like chord, where you're doing fast chord changes and those kinds of things. That wasn't as big a deal. That's often a showstopper for people. We're just learning to change from chord to chord is what makes them stop playing music.
Right.
Yeah. So then, okay, so how do we leverage these? I would say, actually, Justin, if you were going to say, okay, I have this strength of being able to say, what happens if? Is there any ideas that come off the top of your head that you can, like say, okay, how do I make this work? What do I do to push you a little bit? What would be the next question you would ask yourself?
Like in order to like use that strength, you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Well, we've sort of been doing it already, taking other licks from solos and trying to incorporate it into your own. What I've been doing personally, and we talked a bit last week, listening to songs, writing your own solos.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the guitar solo of the song, write your own and see how it sounds. And what would you do in that scenario? Stuff like that is, I think,
Nice.
really
Nice. So what if we took you and we put up I don't know if you have the ability to play a backing track there today. Or if you were coming from an English presentation and needed to rock and roll, but I would say, let's stay in our key of A, and let's put your hand somewhere where you think you won't be able to solo, like is going to be the least comfortable place for you. So in the key of A, where would that be on the fretboard?
in the key of A.
Yeah, if you were going to pick like 4 frets to anchor your hands to, would it be somewhere like, I don't know, 10th to 13th fret, something like that? Put your hand there and solo in the key of A. Don't move out of those frets. See what happens.
Oh, that's evil. Okay.
This is the finale. We don't call it that for nothing. So
All right.
So Mr. Trial and Error, this is how we're going to step on that strength. Okay? So can you Google a backtrack in the key of A? You're going to hold your hand between the 10th fret and 13th fret.
All right.
You're not going to go outside of that, and you're going to solo along in the key of A major.
All right, wonderful. I just need to grab my second phone for the backing track then.
That's no worries, because we'll set up Doug for his challenge next. So Doug, for you, is there anything that comes to mind that you're thinking of from those strengths that you can then push them? So there's, the strength of being able to change chords quickly. What do you think? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, the other side of it that's very hard for me is, as we've discussed in the past, is like when I have to finish playing a riff and the song starts singing,
Right.
So you
Yes,
gotta
yes.
incorporate with some vocals, which is tough. But I mean, I can keep trying what I'm practicing right now, which is floating between strumming and and working my way through the whole chords of A, E, and D, and playing some little riffs in between.
Yeah. But that doesn't really push you because that's what you're working on.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let me push you for a second. So from the chord perspective, I showed Justin. I think I showed him this last week, but all the weeks are blurring into the same week. So Justin, I'm just going to show Doug. I believe I showed you these double stops. So
Right.
Doug, these are 2 notes that you can play at the same time. So this is my pentatonic scale on my 2nd fret.
Yeah.
And I'm going to break some of the rules already because this note is not on the pentatonic scale. So this is my 5th fret and 4th fret. 5th fret on my 1st string and 4th fret on my 2nd string. Can you see that okay there? Yeah, and we're going to use pinky and ring finger. Yeah, and you're going to play those at the same time. Yeah, and then your 2nd fret, 1st and 2nd string. Yeah, and then there's going to be 2 more that I show you here. Yeah, and then 4th fret on my 2nd and 3rd string. Oh, second and third string as opposed to fourth and fifth.
Oh,
And then second fret on second and third string, second fret. Good. These are 4 double stops that get used a lot.
what was the third one again?
So that would be the 4th fret on my second and third string. And I use my ring finger on it. There you go.
Ring finger?
Yeah. Yeah, and our first one was the 4th fret and 5th fret on my first and second string.
Oh, am I playing it backwards?
There you go. Yeah.
That is not comfortable.
Yeah, and I would use first finger on those 2 twos.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So the point of that, yeah, and I'm going to get you to rock through it, and I'll mute you in a second, Doug, so you can do that while Justin and I rock out. But the point of that is that you have the strength with chords, and this is not chords. 2 notes is not a chord; it's a dyad. But whatever, that's super nerdy. Justin will get it.
Yeah.
And but is when you're doing your A, it's those double notes, and you have the more of the hand strength to start to pull those off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the there's a bunch of common ways these are used. Like that's just the first 2 strings that I showed you. Let's actually, yeah, you got the idea. And Doug, you have the hand strength to make something like that work. And the beauty of double stops, when you're playing just rhythm and solos, double stops are more full, right? So you got your rhythm. Does that kind of make some sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So we're going to let Doug mess around with that for a second. And then that's given Justin a little bit of time to put his hand between the 10th and 13th fret and see if he can find the strength here and rock it out. Let's see what you got.
Okay, I won't be able to get the backing track in, so we'll just have to hope it sounds okay.
You know what I'll do? I'm going to just play an A chord along with you. We might be over top of each other. I don't know if that's going to work for people. We do need a reference. That's the tough part.
If you can give me a few, I just have to charge this phone here. I didn't know I would need a backing track.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's all good. The other thing that we're going to start to push you on is, let's say you're using your pentatonic scale.
Yeah.
And sorry, I played it in A minor instead of F sharp, staying in the key of A major. One of the things that is a super useful exercise for a guy like you is to say, okay, what is a note around this scale, any note around this scale that I'm just going to try and make it work at random, right? And you're trying to throw one in, and your whole goal is to get comfortable making that note work.
So a note that isn't in the pentatonic scale?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of that. We were talking about the blues notes.
Yes.
I've been doing a little bit of that, actually. That's really cool. I got it. Yeah, I listened to some blues songs because we said I was going to write a solo last week. So I have a little bit of one made up already doing that.
Okay, actually, let's hear it. Let's hear what you got.
Okay, so this would be in a B flat minor because that was the blues song I heard.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, not B flat minor. That's C sharp. Yes, yeah, C sharp major, so B flat.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. I know what I'm doing sometimes. Yeah.
More often than not.
So it's like, because we were talking about making a melody line. So
Yes.
when I was playing before, we were in F sharp minor. I had the, and
Yeah.
I liked that. So I changed it to this, and then I just kept adding on, and I used the double stops. So I got a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, you're on fire. That's really good. And so this is like kind of the writing. And so I think for you, Justin, one of the things you're naturally going to take to is saying, take what take what works, and then you say, well, what happens when, when I try X, Y, Z? And do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's going to just totally rock it out of the park for you. And your natural sound, because you're always going to land on the things that you like and that ring with you. And the more of that stuff you play, the more it's your sound. It's kind of simple. It's way overly simple, but it's not that complicated.
Yeah, for sure. And this is what I do. I'm like, music is what I do all day, most of the time. So I have no problem with sitting down and like, that sounds bad. That sounds bad for hours. And then finally something clicks. And that is like the best feeling ever.
You are preaching to the choir on that. You are totally preaching to the choir, man. And just so you know, that never, ever, ever stops.
All right.
You start to think, oh yeah, at some point that's going to go away. No, on most days I really consider whether I would ever hire myself as a guitar player. That's kind of where that's the best you ever get.
Sure.
So Doug, you've had a couple minutes to mess around with those double stops and see if we can start to employ this as a strength for you.
Sure.
How's it working? Let's hear what you got.
I was just trying to kind of feel where they fit in, but if I was doing something powerish like you were, this one's tricky.
It is.
But it's coming already.
Yeah, because you've had like 3 minutes to mess with it.
Yeah.
And so do you hear how that starts to make your solos be a little bit more full?
Yeah.
And automatically your solos will, because when you're playing rhythm and solos at the same time, it's like the bottom falls out as soon as you start playing single notes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that will be. I'll be able to work that in.
I think you will. And there's a million of those things that work. One of them, which I know I already showed you, which was the octave thing that we had used for ballads before.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if we know how to play our A major scale on one string, which I know you don't know right now, but if you use those octaves for that in your solos, you're doing. It's automatically way more full than single notes.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I would have to think about that. Like, I'd have to work through that a couple of times just to move up the neck in the right spot.
Yeah, and as because you're doing a deep dive on the A major scale.
Is it just?
So I was playing the A major scale on my 5th string.
And your 5th string.
5th string open. So if you hit your 5th string open, you happen to be playing A, which is super convenient, right?
Yeah.
Let me move to, and Justin, is this kind of making some sense to you?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I'm on my 5th string open, and then, the next, so, actually, I'm going to explain what I'm doing here. So we played our major scale on 3 strings. That's what we were doing before. This is playing the same thing on 1 string. And I knew Doug's ear would get that right away. Yeah, and see, that's your experience, which is great. That's fantastic. So then, if you play octaves, and you don't have to use all those notes, right? And that's all your.
So what strings are you trying to hit there though?
So what oh yeah, right, because the octave thing. So on octave, if I'm going to play my A octave at my 12th fret. So I have my first finger on the 12th fret and my pinky on the 14th fret of my third string.
Okay. But the third string.
Yeah, so there's a string in between those two notes. So not like a power chord, but
Yeah, okay. And I gotta choke the fourth string.
that's right.
I can go up easier than I can go down.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. And that's and as you fully explore that key of A, that becomes one of the main things that you can, start to incorporate.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Yeah, super cool. So Justin, and I know you're functioning without a backtrack because your phone was dead, which is fine. At least you're not out of the house and your parents can't find you. That's good. So now let's take for you your pentatonic scale. Okay. So pick at random a note that you don't know if it will work or not with that scale, and you think probably won't. Anything that's in and around hand proximity.
All right. Okay. Okay, I got one.
Okay, so you're playing your third fret on your pentatonic. So, and then that's the note you're saying. Okay, so then my challenge to you would be, if you had a backtrack, which is fine that you don't, but would be throw on the backtrack, and now you're going to hit that note as much as you can and find the way to make it work, because almost always you can find a way to make them work.
Right. Okay.
So now just playing without a backtrack, I want you to noodle around on that using your pentatonic scale, total improv, solo by itself. Can you make that rock out?
Okay. I gotta think. So that's.
I think you were doing this was a B flat on your third string is the note that you were using before. So the third fret, yeah.
I was doing a flat. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. That's Stairway to Heaven. Okay. Whoops. Okay. I gotta think here.
Yeah, keep everything else on the pentatonic scale just to give yourself that good old reference. Okay? So on your F sharp pentatonic scale, because this then gives you a singular variable. Doug will know what I mean. He's got a super scientific mind, right? So you have your pentatonic scale. You know everything's going to work. You have some things that will be of good taste. And now your next thing you're bringing in is your B flat. Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you. Okay. Ooh, yeah.
And the next, yeah. Are you, actually, I can't see your guitar. Can you tip your, yeah, well, either or. Can you do that again for me?
So, and then that's the extra note.
So actually, you're in G sharp as opposed to F sharp?
Yes.
So, okay, so I was trying to keep you in F sharp and adding that note in.
Okay, so you... Oh, okay, my bad.
No, that's all good.
Ooh, that's difficult. That's gross. Gross.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Now, this all changes when you have background music underneath of you, right? One of the things that I like to do with that note is, so if I'm in F sharp pentatonic, and we're trying to add this note in, is adding that in with that pentatonic and playing a little more. It's not so bad.
All right.
Is that kind? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, any note, if you hit it quick enough, it's going to work. Okay. So your goal is to be able to like find it where you can hang on it and put it in context. So if I'm going to go super nerdy here, which I am, this blues note has a lot of tension, right? You feel the tension with that. This one's got more tension while you hear, F sharp minor going with it, but adding them both in, they kind of almost balance each other out.
Right.
That makes some sense?
Yeah. Just got to play around with that some more.
And so that's what you do is you, for a guy like you that really likes to challenge the rules on things and make it your own, add in one variable at a time, where you then just pick a note that's 1 fret down or 1 fret up, and then 2 frets down, 2 frets up, and the ones that you really would kind of stay away from. And a guy like you is in a week, you're gonna have a whole increased vocabulary pinned on the understanding of the pentatonic scale. You're going to find notes from the natural minor scale in there, and okay, that's fine. And you'll probably go, oh yeah, right, that one's just from the natural minor scale. But you're going to be hanging your information on the really simple concept of the pentatonic scale. And I don't know, from my perspective, this probably comes from being a fairly simple man, is that I like to be able to distill things down to their simplest. Right? Because it means I understand it, other people can understand it, and then you drill down as far as you need to.
Right, for sure.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
And this is all under the umbrella of find the things that you are particularly adept at, regardless of what that is, and then step on it and work it. Both of you guys are at that level, and Doug, for you around the campfire, that's gonna help you be more comfortable sooner, because you're also like for you picked up on those double notes really easy. It's not always like that for people.
Right.
So that is a confirmed strength. 100%. I would definitely say that.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Was that kind of fun for you guys?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
From the bottom of my heart, I thank both of you. This has been an incredible, series to be a part of, and super fun. You guys have been thrown under the bus more times than I can count, and all of us had fun. And for everybody that's watched this series, don't worry. Live streams from Smith Music are not disappearing forever. We're going to be coming back and doing some different things, and so keep your eye out. And again, gentlemen, Justin and Doug, thank you from the bottom of my heart. This has been amazing.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for having us, man.
You're very welcome. You guys rock. Okay, now go kick butt around the campfire.
Will do, boss.
Okay, see you guys.